Hello, senors! Hope has not let me down, and I hope you have all kept well this while. So on this episode, we will recap and review the 2023 movie Little Dixie. Before we begin, let me remind you to subscribe to my channel, Movies Den 2023, in case you have not done so already for regular updates from the channel. Easy does it! Let it be known that independent writer-director John Swab is currently the hardest worker in the entertainment industry, with Little Dixie, his second movie of the still young 2023 year, hitting theaters just 3 weeks after Candyland, his first movie. Little Dixie, which was actually shot in just 20 days, tells the story of ex-CIA Special Forces agent Doc Alexander, Frank Grillo, who is desperate to get his daughter back after she was abducted by the son of a notorious Mexican drug lord, Beau Knapp. Swab used the exact same filmmaking team as that earlier movie, with the exception of the actors. After a brief foray into exploitation antics with the aforementioned Candyland, the movie finds Swab returning to his crime thriller roots. That isn't to say that Swab's work hasn't always included its fair share of exploitative elements, rather, it just means that the constraints imposed by the crime genre have a tendency to appeal to the director's baser instincts while permitting a few sporadic detours that prove to be much more interesting than the worn-out mechanics that surround them. We prefer compassionate killers. The likes of James Bond, Ethan Hunt, and John Wick would never purposefully kill an innocent bystander just because they were in the way. Doing so would dispel the notion that, regardless of how many people they have killed, these are our heroes. Even our anti-heroes appear to require a small amount of relatable pity. If Dexter or Tony Soprano killed a child, we wouldn't be able to look past the other horrifying particulars of their regular brutality. Little Dixie differs from earlier films with a similar theme, such as Ida Red and Body Brokers, in that it is a movie of only digressions. It tells a story that could hardly fill an hour's running time, but Swab extends it far beyond that because what thriller doesn't require Grillo to have meaningful conversations for extended periods of time with a severed head in a bowling bag? Even the action scenes, despite Swab's dependable ability as a director, lack tension because there is never a doubt as to how they will turn out. The setting is beyond complex until we get to the action, which basically finds Grillo doing his best John Wick impression. To be fair, there is a fantastic 80s pop needle drop, a Swab standard, and Knapp-eat scenery to such an absurd extent that one cannot but be entranced. However fun these diversions may be, they only serve to highlight what made the director's earlier picture Candyland his best work, namely, its plain and economical storytelling. Little Dixie feels both overwritten and underdeveloped. It was created by stretching some haphazard ideas that were jotted in the margins of an earlier screenplay. Swab will return once again, most likely sooner rather than later, and it speaks much of the director that this critic is eagerly anticipating it. One only hopes that the man's talents were utilized more effectively than by Little Dixie. The man possesses that unique something, that indescribable characteristic that defines a true talent. Little Dixie's Frank Grillo character does not murder a baby, but Doc is not at all like the anti-heroes we are accustomed to. He almost makes Cuco, the psychopathic hitman who kidnapped his daughter, look likable. At least Cuco has some personality. He is surgical, mechanical, and amoral in his pursuit. This is not intended as a critique of Doc as a person, but rather as a description of a man who has grown so accustomed to murder and destruction that he is essentially the ideal candidate to carry out a political assassination, barring other circumstances. Doc, a former Special Forces agent who serves as a sort of go-between for criminal activity, is introduced to us by Little Dixie. Doc is the man who acts as a middleman between the drug cartel and the politicians, allowing them to function and dodge the harsher scale of justice. Things turn out worse than anyone could have predicted when a governor commits the grave error of celebrating the execution of a drug lord's relative before deciding to fight the war on drugs. Doc is well connected to both parties in this dispute and consistently comes off as the most capable individual. Doc is instructed to deliver him the governor's head on a silver platter, pretty much literally, after Cuco kidnaps his daughter. Doc gathers weapons, ammo, and a chainsaw in order to save his daughter while his allies begin dying and turning against him. As their paths inexorably cross, Little Dixie switches between Doc's goal and Kuko's, heightening the tension. They are really distinct from one another. Doc is like the president's best bodyguard, the one you don't even see, with his spotless suit, styled hair, and polite demeanor. Kuko is an enormous, bald, mouth-breathing beast who wears sunglasses all the time and tracksuits. They both, however, have significant damage, which has caused them to become so skilled at and desensitized to violence. Little Dixie is the movie starring Doc and Kuko, two intriguing, understated characters. Even the smallest expository cues about their personalities offer psychological hints about their personalities, but they are still mysterious enough to be intriguing despite being various agents of violence entangled in a downward spiral together. As Kuko, Beau Knapp is a real revelation. At the same time, he's a terrifying, comical, pitiful, and cool weirdo. Grillo excels in a very understated, effective manner. Even though Doc is an apparently simpler character than the trucker drama Paradise Highway, he manages to be almost more endearing. It's a vast cry from the far more expressive and intricate character he performed so well in last year. Grillo effortlessly transitions into the type of subtly tense, unpredictable, aggressive, and morally callous characters from some of the greatest thrillers ever made. He reminds me of Tom Cruise in Collateral, Lee Marvin in Point Blank, and Alain Delon in Le Samora. Like previous movies, Little Dixie doesn't focus on the elements of acting that are typically thought of as excellent acting, such as character development, poignant dialogue, emotional fluidity, etc. No, because of the acting's atmosphere, Little Dixie makes me think of the thrillers of Michael Mann and Jean-Pierre Melville. Little Dixie's performances, which include a self-assured Eric Dane and the very underappreciated talent Peter Green, are like mood rings that the movie wears gracefully, enhancing the tone and aesthetic of the whole thing. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, A Strange Western Fever Dream, is only one of the films that this elegant movie boldly acknowledges as influences. Its use of violence has a rapid reality and moral ambiguity to it that is frequently unexpected and well executed. Some of the violence is evidently digitally bloodied, which is more expensive to produce than good old-fashioned squibs, which are always preferred. The realistic violence nonetheless has the ability to startle due to its persistence and sporadic abruptness despite that uncommon cheapness. When urged to assassinate the governor in order to win his daughter back, Doc transforms into a soldier. As Grillo said to MovieWeb, he's like a surgeon doing open-heart surgery for the 3,000th time. There is no hesitancy, little of that annoying banter that only serves to postpone the ultimate kill, and no pathos or theatrics. One of the most productive filmmakers working now is John Swab, in actuality. While quantity doesn't always translate into continuous quality, Swab consistently improves his directing and writing abilities and is establishing himself as one of the most intriguing filmmakers of our day. He is willing to work in any genre, and when he does, he attacks it head-on, inverting predictable cliches and adding a range of unique elements to make each movie feel familiar while still managing to surprise his audience. This sets him apart from his colleagues. Little Dixie is the ideal example of this preamble, a groundbreaking, retro-tinged revenge thriller overflowing with complex characters, moving performances, plenty of curveballs, and plenty of expertly handled physical violence on top of it all. As the ultimate anti-hero, Doc, an ex-Special Forces agent now acting as a go-between for his power-hungry, longtime military ally, Oklahoma Governor Richard Jeffs, Eric Dane, and a Mexican drug cartel that has been funding the governor's campaign, the screenplay is the ideal vehicle for the lead actor, Frank Grillo. It allows him to flex both his action star and stirring dramatic muscles. A potential truce between the two factions, however, disintegrates when Jeffs publicly announces an endeavor to crack down on cartel initiatives, disobeying his chief of staff's, Annabeth Gish, concerns. Doc is forced to carry out a duty given to him by the cartel when his family is dragged into the conflict. He will stop at nothing to defend his small daughter, Little Dixie, who is the only real source of pride and joy remaining in his life. The best crime films are frequently only as good as their antagonists, and when cartel boss Lalo Miguel Prado, Maurice Comte, sends his half-brother Cuco, Beau Knapp, to Oklahoma to handle business, director John Swab's clever decision to give his antagonist significantly more screen time than most films of this ilk do really works to the film's advantage. It's a joy for the viewer to get to spend so much more time with the antagonists of this kind of movie than we typically get to, because Knapp is a force to be reckoned with and turns into a continuously frightening performance. Along with the intricately detailed antagonists, the movie is also brilliantly supported by a large ensemble cast that gives some intriguing leeway so that Swab can keep the viewer guessing as to who will survive to the end. And the inclusion of such a large cast of people never feels unnecessary or stretched too thin. We simply had to emphasize the film's constant violence, which is also beautifully staged, to conclude this assessment. Swab deftly hides specific gory sequences, bathtub dismemberment moment. I'm looking at you, leaving it entirely up to the audience to conjure up truly horrifying images of what's happening but not actually seen. This is similar to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, which most people still regard as one of the goriest movies of all time despite barely any blood being shed on the screen. Little Dixie is the classic vengeance thrillers that this genre sorely needed, and both the movie and Swab will go down in cult history. John, please continue to deliver them as quickly and forcefully as you have so far. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed the recap and review of this movie, Little Dixie. For more amazing videos and movie recaps and reviews, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel Movies Den 2023. Please comment below to let me know what you think about the movie. Until next time, take care. I'll see you around. Thanks for watching.